Steinecke. I never do that. Anyways, we're here. Sorry for mispronunciation,
That's
but
okay.
you know, we'll build from where we are, and the main thing is chat. These conversations are so valuable, not because we enjoy doing them, which is also the case, but the gratification of seeing people evolve, blossom, change, even in little ways like confidence building, knowledge sharing, networking. This is really, I hope, what social media was supposed to be about,
Yes.
right? Before it got, disrupted and spammy and scammy and salesy. And we're trying to bring it back to a positive place, a safe place, and a supportive place. So, Kelle, you've been here almost from the beginning. You continue to bring so much value, not just in your insights, but in your generosity, which I think we've shown to be more giving, not taking, more providing, not challenging, and it's working. And that is so cool. What's your thoughts, Kelle? And by the way, chat's open. We're waiting for you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching. And it's great to be back. It's been a long 24 hours since I've been here. And I do want to say, no worries about my last name. You think anybody ever pronounces it correctly the first time? And if that's the worst thing that happens today, I think we're going to be okay. And I'm with you. I love how everything is evolving, and people that are coming in, the people that you were just telling me about before we jumped on, here to help people who are coming back to LinkedIn due to all the layoffs, or which aren't going to be slowing down anytime soon, which is such a bummer, but it's just a fact. And we do want to be here to help and be a resource to help those people who are lost. What do I do now? I can't get my resume past the HR desk, or I don't know how to do my resume. Because resume writing has changed dramatically, even over the past 5 years. So I think this is a great place for people to connect and help one another, and not be afraid to ask the questions that they might be embarrassed to ask. LinkedIn's been around a long time, but there's not a lot of people that are avid users of it, or have good, deep insight, tips, tricks, etc., to help others out. And people really don't have time to go watch all the LinkedIn educational, the Learning Center, which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But I think for some, it's probably very overwhelming, and like, I don't even know where to start. So this being a place to come and be able to ask any of those questions, or just talk about anything. That's exactly what you said. Social media, unfortunately, has turned into this, ugly place where people can't wait to say something nasty, negative, or tear someone down. And LinkedIn, thank God, has not changed in the sense of, it feels a little Facebooky sometimes in our feeds, but I don't mind some of them, because they're usually like positive, encouraging quotes, which is great. Or sharing some family things, reminding everyone that we're all human. But I think LinkedIn is a platform that hasn't gone that direction. It does give us some way to say, at least there is a positive place, and people give positive feedback all the time. I've not seen one negative comment since I've been on, and when I watch. So that's been awesome. And I love everyone that's come on. I love that they all feel like friends now. And I think we alluded to that a little bit yesterday, is you really make connections. And, like I said, even with me connecting with Ambimbola, that's in Nigeria, and I'm in Arizona, the United States. And, I feel a sisterhood with her just by meeting her here. And certainly so many others. I've had great conversation with Jason, and, I adore Gretchen and Tara and Christine Feedy and Kevin. And and Jason, I could go on and on and on. It's just kind of cool how it's like now starting to feel like this, family, and now we're expanding, because we're starting to see those like original family members start to bring in their other friends, families, coworkers, colleagues, etc., which has just been great.
Yeah, and I love bringing you on the show. and you are kind of the show because of the insights and the new expanding opportunities that can bring, because the progression has been from my thinking, I'll do this show and build proficiency and strategy and share what I'm doing and people can benefit. And then it moved like, that's important, but what's pressing right now is mindset, attitude, dealing with things that are stressful that maybe most people haven't encountered. And that's pretty general, but it's general because everybody I've talked to, once you get past the superficial part of the conversation, expresses that in one way, shape, or another.
Yeah.
Now what is progressing to is now it's going to be kind of subset, right? Because you have a general population that all needs support and help here, but then you need specific areas that require people who are accustomed to the industry. And we were just talking, the next big subset will be employment.
Yeah.
And that can cover from being an entrepreneur to being a contractor, to being an employee, to being an employer or a founder, whatever you want, but bring common ground, because I think that's where the division comes in, is people don't understand each other. They don't understand why people are doing things both ways. Yeah. And everybody's got some shared responsibility, but if everybody could get smarter from their end, so employers start to become more sensitive and empathetic towards what future employees or even present employees are thinking and what's out there for them, and for future employees or present employees to understand what founders and CEOs are dealing with, to maybe give it some foundation. It's like, now I don't appreciate it, but I understand it better.
Right.
Or I know what I'm dealing with, and maybe I should adjust in the future. And the other thing is, online and specifically social media has created opportunities for people that were never there before, but people go back to what's tried and true, but it's not tried and true anymore, which is putting yourself out there with kind of almost your hand out, saying, please hire me, or I can do wonderful things for you. And you're there with 10,000 other people with their hand out. And, I remember even in the older days, I would run ads for people and I'd get like hundreds of applications and resumes. And to be honest, I had to look for reasons to discount them all, right? Because I couldn't deal with 600. So I'd have to get down to 20. And at that point, it was someone missed punctuation, someone,
right.
Just something simple that caught your eye and say, well, that's it, and it's gotten worse. But where it's gotten better, and one person could make changes that whole organizations could never think of.
That's right.
It's become your own classified ad. Don't go into somebody else's mailbox. Don't go into a company mailbox. Don't go into a publication mailbox like a posting place, but create your own persona with LinkedIn and make your whole headline what you're looking for. No one cares who you are until they know why you're there, right? If someone comes to your door, the first question is, what are you here for? I mean, in a nice way. No one cares like where you're from, where'd you go to school? I mean, that comes after that. And most people have so little attention that it's not like a resume where it's sitting on someone's desk and they're holding it. You've got a couple seconds. So if I was looking for something, I would be so bold. And that's actually what I'm doing with my own profile. I have nothing about me, but everything about what I can do for others. Right. And that's, and you can do that and do everything else, I mean, and then get on shows like this, get with people like us.
Yes.
Right. Yes. There's 3 ways to win. What do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, good morning, Jason.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you, we got the first time, Giles, I think. I almost said Giles, but I think it's Giles. Dean is here, still wondering about that potato, Dean. I got to get some insight into that. Jason's here, and Jason also has been a guest host. And while Jason's on the air, happy to have you back as a guest host. So let's talk about that. You know, a lot of people have come on and have been receiving a lot of by popular demand. We'd love to see Jason back. We'd love to see Mario back. So you don't just vote with your comments, you vote with your interests, right? And we want to try to match as many relevant people and subjects to the audience to make it more valuable, so that you come back, so that you share this with others. But more importantly, you become part of it. Like I've always mentioned, it's like a mosaic, you know, and Jason's on. Ann Bimbola, who Kelle is a sister with,
Yes.
here. This is so great. And these people are so great. You know, this is so important. What do you think, Kelle?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, it just makes me feel like I said yesterday, it's like it's a gift to us too, to be here and to talk and to hear people comment and reply and watch them start giving information and the connection. You know, and Jason, and Jason, we will connect again soon, because I'm going to be on your podcast. I believe we talked about that last time. We had the most awesome, 2-hour conversation, Zoom call, Jason and I, which was a direct result from being here. So there's so many great things that do come out of this, and so many different synergies and learning about other people's businesses. Like, I love that part of it. Learning about where are you right now? What's going on with you? And how can we help one another? Or how can I help you? I may not be able to directly, but I might know someone. Or, you know, to go back to what we started to say before the comments too, was about helping people here with jobs and giving new ideas of how to do things. I think the whole resume thing, and we talked about this right before we came on too, is you never know where your resume goes. And these organizations don't realize, like, you're really affecting people in a negative way when you don't respond. Like, respond to these people. It doesn't matter if it's a canned email that says, you know, hey, thank you for your submission. However, the position has been filled. We'll keep you on file if we have anything that was commensurate with your experience in the future. I mean, anything. Because I feel like, and you were mentioning a gal to me earlier who's been out of work for 4 months, isn't getting anything. And when you've been someone that's been employed your entire life, and now all of a sudden you've been out of work for 4 months and you can't even get an interview, what that does to you emotionally and mentally is big. And that's the other part of the reason that we're here, is there's such a need for people to be like, I just need a dose of some positivity and to know that I'm not alone. I think we can get mixed in our own heads in the thing of, you know, I feel so terrible because I'm not getting a job. Nobody wants to hire me. I'm not wanted. And it's feeding all that negative talk that we have in our brain, that we're not good enough. And then we feel totally disconnected from everyone else. And just hearing sometimes like, oh my gosh, it's so good to know that I'm not alone. I needed a reminder. And I believe that's definitely what we're doing here. And I love that about here. And I mean, how can I not love seeing all these people say good morning and hello, and just for showing up again, I think we talked about this yesterday too, is showing up for themselves. Like, this is a place for you. You know, just because we're sitting up here, the ones behind the microphones, mine might be a little fancier than Dawn's, but it is all about what can we do to help you? And what resources do we have, or what questions do you have, or who do you need to be connected to? Really take the time for the other people that are in the chat feed, connect with them. You know, if they say something that resonates to you, send them a message. It doesn't have to be that you're looking or finding that person that can offer you a job perhaps, or whatever it is exactly that you're looking for, but they may know someone. Put a face back to, and I think that the statement that's I'll probably start repeating now is, this is all about getting to know the people behind the profile. You know, profiles look great and you can see a picture and you can see some cool experience that people have. But it's totally different when you're with them in person. and get a feel of their personality, who they are, what they're looking for. Because a lot of times people write on their profiles what they think people want to hear or what the right things are to hear. And it's just inauthentic. There needs to be a little more personality. And here is a platform where you can be connected with people and use. And I think another thing we said yesterday, you know, for job seekers, gosh, do a LinkedIn Live and promote yourself. I mean, I just think that would be so great. And if I were looking for someone, or even if I wasn't and I knew somebody that was, and I saw something like that, I would be more apt to send that along than someone that sends me their resume into my inbox. What do you think, Don?
I think a lot. And I think you said a lot that has a lot of value. And here's what I'm seeing that can be applied generally to what we're talking about is flipping things from where you are to being on top of things.
Yeah.
Right? Be the interviewer, not the interviewee. You can interview Kelle, you can interview me, you can interview Jason, right? And you get to choose by just sending out invitations to not only connect, but to talk. And now you've got a basis. Now you've got a peer level basis. You're not reaching up and no one's reaching down. You could say, hey, Jason, loved your comments. Great to meet you. Great to see you. And I was on the show and I'd love to share thoughts with you. And that's all you want to do is share thoughts. You don't want to say, I need a job, I want something, because you're going back to going on the bottom again versus like, you know, everything you look at should be a proactive opportunity. So ideas you get from here should be things you act on. People you meet here should be people you reach out to, because at worst case, they were a stranger when you met them and a stranger when you left them. That's the worst that could happen. Everything in between is just in between. But the best thing that can happen is someone sees you and sees something in you that could only be seen by talking as a peer with you, right? And if you don't, and here's the beauty of it, you have all the time in the world to take your best shot. So don't rush it. You know, don't do it from a distance. Get as close as you can so you know who you're dealing with. And the more you reach out, the more you talk to people, the more you learn from those people about how to reach out to the next person. So you got to almost look at it like the first whatever is going to be a little disappointing, a little frustration, you know, a little bit a fish out of water. But after a while, you say, yeah, that's a common thread. I got to stop saying that. And I should start saying this.
Yeah.
And this is what people really want, because if you don't have what Kelle says is explanation, it's left with confusion. You know, when someone would say, you know, when I got my first bank loans to start businesses, and the first 4 were disasters. And what I learned was, tell me what I could have done. I know you made the decision. I'm not here to change it. But what was it that if I would have added or subtracted or did something, would I have got the loan? And after 4 rejections, the 5th one was cleaned up. Christine's here. Christine, you know, has been such a wonderful resource and asset to this show, because she really jumped in with both feet, and it really is a great sharer. But, you know, an inspiration based on all the balls she's juggling, all the different elements, and she still has time for this. And even Paul, when he says, been really crazy week with speaking, sorry, been missing these. But, you know, the main thing is not you leave. The main thing is you come back.
Right.
Right. This is like a happy home. And I think the reason we have polite, respectful people is that's the message that's attracting those people. And the message is so rare relative to most messaging, because it's the me instead of we approach. It's the I'll eat first and then you'll eat second, versus I'm here to serve you and make the most fantastic meal that you'll want to come back just for you. And after a while, just for you becomes just for my friend and me and my friends and me. And then eventually it comes back to everybody who provided it, right? Because they're teaching you, you know, this is like an education online but the beauty of it is it's taught by so many different people every day based on their experiences that you couldn't publish a book in advance saying, here's what we are, and the now factor and the reality element that says, I could get something fixed, right? I mean, if you just happen to be around people who are service technicians and you had an issue, it's like all these people can help me and they know what I'm going through and they've gone through it. And I know it's pure. I know there's no ulterior motive. I know I'm not going to get hit with a sales pitch right after. And, here's why it's so important, because those things turn people off. You want to be turning lights on. You want to be opening doors. You want to be lifting up garage doors. I mean, that's the thing, is be expansive. So Jason, great point, Kelly. Is nothing like personal contact. Christine, I'm listening on my drive back to Massachusetts. 3 days in New York is with family is enough. No kidding. And I don't know your family, but I know my family. Here's Paul. I think it's important to focus on where you're going versus where you're at, and visualization and manifestation changed my life for sure. They say with car accidents, 70% of them could be avoided if people looked at where the avoidance was instead of where they were driving towards, right? So if there's a car stuck in front of you, you got time to do something. And what you believe in manifests itself in small ways you don't even know, by your facial expressions, your attitude, the vocabulary you use, versus, I'm just going to do it and get it done, and that's all that matters. But more importantly, you can add quality of life to that, because most people look at the climb as struggle, challenge, have to have endurance, versus a party that never ends, that people are laughing and having a good time. Because when you're having a good time, you don't want to get to the end, right? When the climb is so much fun, it's like reading a book. You don't want to see the end of it because you're into it so much. And that's how you should look at life and everything else, because you're just one person in a very big population. And all it takes to satisfy you is not that much relative to what's out there, right? And too many people look at what they haven't got, what they lost, what they should have got. And that's yesterday. It's like trying to unring a bell. Today is, I got to get up, and everybody's got to get up, and not just out of bed, but up in their mindset. When you meet somebody, what are you bringing with you? Is a gift, like we talked about even yesterday, about saying hello. I'd like to say hello to people who never say hello to me, just to see them not say hello to me again.
Yes.
And they're walking away saying, boy, I should have said hello. I mean, I see so many people who, as they get closer to you, they start looking at their feet as they walk by you. So there's no eye contact and no opportunity. And I'm saying, boy, this person is locked up. This person's got to stretch a little bit. But that's okay, because they're the red lights versus the green lights, because there's plenty of people walk around with smiles, like a Mario type of guy who's looking for opportunity to share it. It gets so overwhelming. Here we've got Ambambola, and Ambambola is just a great contributor. I'd love to have Ambambola on the show, because, to me, whoever supports us needs to be supported. Right. And that's the way you're going to retain and promote people. And, I know that the vehicle we're using and how we're using it is so powerful that it'll take you wherever you want to go if you let it. All you got to do is get on board, and you can always get off. That's the beauty. There is no one-way trips here. Right. Anytime, anywhere, for any reason, you're your own person. And that's what we want. That's why we call this now the hour of empower, right? Because we want people to beef up a little bit, strengthen. And, more importantly, once you see your destination, you believe it, you're almost there. Once you know the check's in the mail, whatever happens before you get it, you don't think about finance, because it's going to get covered. And not only that, you start sharing that. Do you know? I mean, just like if you bought a new car and it's going to be delivered in 4 weeks, for the next 4 weeks, you'd be saying, hey, I got a new car order. Can't wait to take you for a ride. Buy that car in your mind, you know. And here's another thing, because it's all mindset, is cast yourself in the role of the winner, the victor in whatever you do. You can put yourself, you know, in that position. You can hire yourself and say to yourself, I know I'm not getting the value I deserve, not just want. And I'm tired of groveling and compromising and competing when there's open field all by myself, and I'll never get fired, you know, because you got job security for life if you're working for you. You may not have business security or financial security, but that's one whole level of stress you don't have to deal with, right? Because you got to be on pins and needles. If it takes so long and it's so hard to get a job, the employer knows it's so easy to replace you.
Yes.
Right? So you're on shaky ground to begin with. And it's not to say if you're an employee, not to be an employee. You know, I have full respect for people's financial situation, personal situation. But what I've learned is multiple streams of income is the way to win the day. So while you're building your other opportunities, you've got something to support you, but you know it's like a spare tire until you can get the real tire on, right? Which is the things that you can expand in. And I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who's building a whole business that's really very generous, but it's because he's got an income in the meantime. So what do you think about all this, Kelly? We're talking about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, one of the things that I have to go back to, because it's so funny to me, is when you were talking about saying hi to someone who, when they like get closer to you and they look down, it honestly was always my mission when I was in corporate America, because there was always that person in the office, and I was an executive. So sometimes people would just be shy, thinking, you know, because for whatever reason, people think executives are, you know, scary people, or that they're not supposed to be. We're just people, no different than anyone else. And I would make it my personal mission to be like, I'm going to make this person look at me and say good morning. And every day I would go by and, you know, he would look down and away to the ground, and I would just, you know, good morning. And eventually he couldn't help but like chuckle and then be like, good morning. And it was kind of a big thing in the office that everybody was like, of course, Kelly was the one to get him to say hi, because he was just a little bit, he didn't deal well with people. He was very much an introvert, and didn't socialize well, which there was nothing wrong with it. But I'm like, you know, you can just gently pull someone, because over time, what he knew is I was genuine. So he responded to that. And, you know, that goes back to the whole thing, of course, here of the being genuine, and then what that means to everyone. There's such a different vibe when you know people are genuine, as opposed to feeding you some canned reply or response or pitch that they've learned. And I know you touched on some other things about employment. Oh, with the employers, there's such a mishmash of what's happening in the world with employment, right? Because there's employees now that, well, you're not an employee anymore. I know so many employers that they're 1099ing everyone. And there's people that they're like, what do? I can't get a position in a company as an employee. I need benefits. You know, because the thing with 1099s, of course, that happens to people who've never been a 1099er, you know, they're not holding back taxes. You don't have health insurance or any other insurance that you may need. So your expenses are much higher when you're a 1099, which creates other things and goes through your whole deal of, you've got to be someone, in my opinion, these days, generating multiple revenue streams. I had a girlfriend, and I don't know if she coined this or not, but she was saying, you know, this is the birth of the polypreneur, because you have to have multiple income streams. And, you know, you love what you do, but try to add on to it and see how, you know, how you can make those other things happen. And And this again is a good platform to be able to do that. Talk to other people who have done it. How do I get there, and how do I take care of myself? Maybe in the interim of getting full-time employment, maybe that is your goal, but maybe you can do some 1099 work in the interim, because I do think there's value for people and mental health wise. When I was struggling to find a job after getting laid off in 2020, as an marketing executive, I was not getting hired anywhere. And it was devastating to me because I never in my life had to really look for a job. And truthfully, anything that I had ever wanted work-wise, I always got it. So it was just kind of this, and then being isolated, there were so many layers upon it. But there was also the part of not feeling that I was giving to community, I guess, because there is the part of us as humans. The reason we work really is to help community. I mean, we do need bills and we have to pay rent and all that good stuff, but it is about doing to give. And there was a big component of that. And I took a part-time job somewhere local here just to fill some time. And so I felt useful because I just felt so crappy home 24/7 and filling out more resumes. And the other thing I don't understand with employers, and if someone can answer this question, if you ask for my resume and I upload it, and then you take me to your software where I have to re-input my entire resume again. And it's so time consuming. It's just kind of like, well, why did you have me upload it if I'm just going to have to re-enter everything anyways? And when you have a lot of work experience, of course, that's time consuming. And then to get nothing back from what you input and I spent time being thoughtful with my cover letters. And that was simply because I've interviewed hundreds of people over my career, and reading cover letters a lot of times would help me move them down the path. Like you were saying, if you look at so many resumes and you're like, these are all great people, and then you do start to nitpick, well, they missed a comma here and a period here, or, they had an extra space. You're picking on the tiny things to eliminate people. But I also liked to look at things of like the cover letter. This is great. So I'm going to move them forward in the process. And I see that Christy is here. So she definitely is she made a couple of comments up there. And like we were saying earlier, Don, before we came on, that how broken the system is. Like it's terrible. And how it plagues people with their mental health. And I do say that from my personal experience and from so many people that I have spoken to. And it always goes back to the thing of like, I never hear anything back from them. And that also goes to recruiters. Recruiters can be, and not all of them. I'm actually working with a recruiter right now that's phenomenal. But there are some that are just terrible. They would call and be like, oh, we're so excited. We've got this perfect client for you, and we're going to submit your resume. And, you go down the path, and then all of a sudden they're not calling you. And I'm like, why am I following up with a recruiter? They're the ones that call. And then they don't call back. Like they ghost you. And I'm like, that should not be allowed. I mean, it is so rude. And it's just beyond that. It's like, you don't know what that silence is honestly doing to people. And seeing it more and more, and there's like, they don't care. And I'm like, again, I go back to what I said earlier in the show. Organizations or anyone who's hiring people, go back to the canned email reply. At least let them know, hey, we got your resume, but we've already filled the position. We'll keep you on file should we have an opportunity that's commensurate with your experience. That gives somebody closure, and they can move on from it. When you hear nothing, unfortunately, our thoughts, when we don't know what's actually happened, what's factual on the other side, we go to the worst places because that's how we're wired, which is a shame. And that's feeding the whole I'm not good enough scenario, which is terrible. So it's just like, come on, people, take a couple of minutes and send a freaking email. I mean, it will do so much more than, because the damage that they're doing, I just don't even think that they really understand, especially when people are actively looking with multiple employers and they get nothing from any of them. Like that just feels just so terrible. And I feel for all of them. And I wish there was a way that we could, maybe we are going to start a movement. Like, organizations, you've got to change your hiring practices. This is ridiculous.
I think that's very, very important and valuable. And what's so important is the system is broken. And what the system is losing is people who have high value, high self-confidence, and say, I'm not going to play in that system. And they're going to lose all of that quality talent. Plus, some of the questions they asked you are irrelevant for the initial application. Those questions are almost like final questions. And even the ones that say, how much would you work for? That alone is dumbing down to say, hey, maybe we can get you at a desperate point where you'll work for hardly nothing.
That's exactly what they're doing.
And then it becomes taken advantage of just to get some of these people. Let me see. Dean said, now here's Ken, a new gentleman. I connected with him yesterday. He was on the show. He came through one of our guests, Savor the Flavor. He's always into delicious, delectable things. Of awesomeness in your peeps, wisdom, kindness, goodness, patience, encouragement, empathy, understanding, sincerity, all these things. You're so right, because that's what doesn't show up on a resume. It doesn't show that, hey, I'm a high integrity person. I'm a service oriented person. I'm a this person. I'm a that person. Who cares how fast I can type? Who cares what school I went to? I mean, it's like, I am who I am right now. Look at me for what it is, not for a bunch of qualifying things. Oh, you didn't go to a Big E school. You didn't do this, blah, blah, blah. We've got Paul. Love this show because the messages matter. We don't waste our words on times and things. And here's another thing where your biggest bank account is. Because when most people are out of work, people say, well, you got enough money in the bank to get through, or do you got somebody who can help you out? It's the people you know. If you're plugged into something like this and people get to know you over 3 months, 6 months, or this collaboration group where you're table to table, somebody would say, I know 4 people that would love to have you, right? And don't go out in the cold with a million other people and find out nobody wants you. And rejection of anything over time impacts you, right? And don't allow yourself to be in a position someone rejects you. You're the one who should choose. You know what you need. You know what you want. You know there's people out there. Get busy. Because if you were to get a job, they'd make you busy. So get busy so you're already running fast. Paul says, I love this show. Okay. He says, I think we all take ourselves too seriously. I'm definitely the most guilty of that. Now I've learned to just laugh at the world. And it's so smart, Paul, because that's what it should be. That should be the exception. It should be the rule. But because everybody's been turned around and flipped upside down, just getting normal is right. Christy's here, and Christy's here even when she's not here, because her messages and her spirit lasts so much longer. This system for job seekers, and people are rude with not responding and just ghosting. Well, here's the key, Christy. That's the opportunity we have. We can walk right into something that's high demand, low supply, poor quality, and just up the game, and all of a sudden people will flock, right? Dean says, stop sending resume because of automation, kicking it out because of ageism. Well, honestly, everybody's in a class that they feel is not getting full recognition, whether it's old people. I was talking to a young lady yesterday who is just perfect in almost every way, and it's been out of work 4 months. You're right, going to networking events, putting in resumes, doing all that stuff. And at a certain point, the answer you keep coming back to is the answer you're going to keep getting. Strike out on your own, make your own path. And what you might find is when no one wants you, you should want you. Hire yourself, be your own best friend, get out there, and have people allow themselves to help you. So your real resource is your goodwill that you've created, the credibility and trust you've developed with people. Because that's really what an employee wants to know. Is this person dependable, reliable, trustworthy, a team player? If you
Yeah.
can answer that, you're better off with that than having all this stuff on your resume. Poonam's here. Poonam's always here. I
Yeah.
gotta get you to get a picture in there, Poonam. I hate to, there's a saying, criticize in private, praise in public. Paul had an interesting thing I want to share because where is Paul? But anyways, he mentioned Agmandino and that book that he has. Okay, right here. And have either read The Greatest Salesman by Agmandino. You might know it as the 10 Scrolls. Yeah, I've read it like 2 or 3 times. And I'll tell you a quick story about Og. And I got a chance to meet him, and it was probably the last speech he ever made. And he was one of the most successful early personal development players. And his story, he starts out with, every time he gets on a stage, he said, imagine a man in Cleveland, Ohio, in a huge snowstorm, looking at a pawn shop window, and he goes in and he buys a gun and 1 bullet. And here's an alcoholic who just lost his family, has nothing left to live for. And he goes in a small little rented apartment, and he can't pull the trigger. And he said, that man is standing in front of you. And what he did is he wrote, I believe, this book. It was a pamphlet. And Amway was just getting started. And the founder of Amway saw this little print thing and fell in love with it and decided he wanted every member of Amway to have a copy. And he reached out to Og and asked him, and that launched him on a career. And he ended up having a wonderful life. He actually lived in Phoenix. And he was the gentleman who said, if you want to know if you're a millionaire, or if you want to trade with somebody in the obituaries, where you are today, when people tell you this, and that's pretty serious stuff he's sharing. Mm-hmm. But he also knows he said, I know there's somebody, every time he says, I get 3 people saying I was on the verge of suicide until I heard what you had to say. Oh. And he says, when you can possibly save 3-4 lives in an audience, it's worth being open about it.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's what we've been talking about here too. It's like if it changes one person's day, like, job done. I mean, there's nothing better. And I think, that's so powerful. And so I have goosebumps from it, actually. And wonderful. I'm going to have to look that book up, because now
it's a very short read, but it's kind of, it has a spiritual, religious element to it.
I love it.
So there's really something for everybody. And what was fascinating, that's why I'm pushing this collaboration group, I'm still playing with it and getting it right, is the groups I've been in have been phenomenal. I was in a group in the 90s with Agmandino, with Brian Tracy, with Jim Rohn, with all these wonderful people. And it was the People's Network. And it was the first time that personal development could be broadcast 24/7 on satellite. And you're talking 20 some years ago. And then I was in a group called the Inc. Council on Growing Companies, sponsored by IBM, Inc. Magazine, and Price Waterhouse, and got a national group of those people together. So I know how effective this is. I know the relationships and the people that are now getting attracted to the show, who 3 months ago didn't know it or didn't understand it. But, we're getting, like, Antonio Prescott's going to be here Sunday. He's got a great show. Jason's got a great show. I've got a gentleman, Omar, who's coming a week from Tuesday. So all these new people, Melissa Houston is coming Monday to share with Gretchen. Everybody's coming together. So what it means is we need to create more slots. Mm-hmm. And as more people come in, people know then hopefully this is a trusted network. It's almost got like the badge of approval on it.
Right.
And that's so great. Paul says, I think we saw that. Stop. Okay, we saw that. I really wish most can watch today's event and hear this. Spot on, Kelly. Well, the funny thing we're talking about is it's so widespread and visible what the abuses are, what the challenges are. I mean, this is employment. This is not probation. I mean, this is something where people used to be embraceable. You go to your desk and they'd have a welcome little package for you.
Right.
Or they'd have a little get together to introduce you to everybody, and you were a prized part of the organization. And now it's like number 13, you're on the right desk over there. And, we don't care about anything but what you produce here.
That's right.
And once you know that, you're on shaky ground. Poonam's here. Hi, Christy. Poonam's active. Morning, sorry, late sounds. It's so cool when people even say they're sorry.
I know. I was thinking that earlier because I was like, I love that Paul was like, I'm sorry I've been busy this week and I've missed, but I'm back, or however he worded it. And it's interesting because the way that I interpret it, one is like how awesome that people can go away from the show, because let's be honest, we understand people have lives, jobs, and other things to do. And it may be difficult to get here every day, but that you come back. How many things do you leave for several days and really go back to them? And I mean, so I thought that was super cool. And like you said, just saying, sorry, I'm late. It's like, hey fam, I'm here. Like, sorry, I'm late, but I'm here. It feels so much more personal. I love it.
Oh yeah. You know what it demonstrates? Friendships.
Yeah.
People aren't here because they missed a show of knowledge. They missed a show of people. And what it's showing is, like I say, I had 36,000 connections before I started the show. I don't think there's one connection that I'm interacting with that hasn't come from the show. So these are brand new, fresh, aligned, relevant people. The people I picked up in the past were, I want to connect. Okay, let's connect. I want to do this. Okay, let's do it. And that's where it started and that's where it ended.
Mm-hmm.
This is where people now are really sharing how you relate to other parts and other people in their lives, because it's a choice. And everything we're talking about, if you could break it down to one word, is redirection. Redirection of your people, redirection of your time, redirection of your thought. When you get your thoughts right, you get best practices, you get best people, and you're confronted with 4 unsatisfiable appetites out there, whether it's mental health, whether it's employee stability. There should be one just for entrepreneurs, because there's a whole list of challenges that deal with that, and get people like Kelly and myself who can speak to entrepreneurs because they are entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
A CEO is the best person to talk to a CEO. A national sales manager is the best person to talk to a national sales manager, because they're in the same boat. They're dealing with the same things. And now they can express and help themselves so much better. Got some more, Christy? Problem, the recruiter, HR may don't have good communication between each other. I was the hirer.
True.
I was never the interviewer. Or interviewee. And what I learned? The number one thing in time was, where have you been? And who have you been with? Because there were certain companies I know, they trained well, they rewarded well, they supported well, and those people were well nurtured and they were ready to help and serve. And then I knew places that were just nasty, no integrity, took advantage of everything and everybody. And if they were a product of that, I don't care what they had going, they were tainted, and they would continue to duplicate, because how you bring people in is how they bring people in.
What's interesting is you say that. I just had someone not too terribly long ago reach out to me through LinkedIn and was saying that they were interviewing this colleague that I had worked with previously, and that they wanted to talk to me. And quite honestly, I was like, why would she put me as a as a reference? Like she didn't work for me, and I didn't even know her.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out what he was looking for is she had come out of an environment that was toxic, and it was, and he had just had another employee that it took almost a year to get him sort of reintroduced into a normal work environment, a healthy culture, because he had been so damaged from the previous experience, and he wanted to not repeat it. And I was like, wow, that's super interesting that you reached out to me and asked that way, because that isn't a thing. Um, of course, I didn't know the woman, so I couldn't really speak to it. And she'd only worked there for like 4 months, and I said my perception of the situation is she recognized the toxicity and got out, which would make me feel that she's likely healthy, but I haven't spoken to her, so I can't speak to it. But I just thought that was super interesting. And it was the CEO that he reached out and was like, I want to be sure this person isn't too damaged from their previous work relationship, because I have seen what that's done to some people who work in that toxic environment. And it's like being in an abusive relationship, because it is. And when they get out of it and they're in a healthy environment, being in a healthy relationship, they don't know how to act at first, and are so on edge constantly. And I mean, it's fascinating how it happens, and it's terribly sad. But it's also terribly sad that there's so many organizations that still have that. Quite honestly, the whole lead by fear, which is usually the overall approach of where that happens, or a toxic manager is generally the root cause. But yeah, I just thought that was super interesting, because there's so many different things of how people are trying to approach how to hire also. And that was the first time I'd ever had anyone reach out to me in that way, which I kind of thought was pretty smart. But also that obviously the CEO would need to be careful about who he actually spoke to. I'm honest enough to say, I don't really know her. I can only deduce from the information that I have. This is my opinion, but I don't know the woman. And if there was somebody by chance that he would have contacted that maybe didn't like her for whatever reason, who knows what they could have said. But anyways, I thought that was super interesting and creative, and honestly, not a bad idea. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. And, also Dean, I guess, has read the book, The Greatest Salesman. And that's another book now that will be shared by people because
That's right.
of Paul's comment. So everybody can put a pebble in the little river or stream or lake and watch it ripple through everybody else. It's so beautiful. Everybody's got a ton of dominoes they're standing right next to. And all it takes is the first person to push the first domino to have a chain reaction. Paul, Don, you remind me so much of my grandpa. Love all the wisdom and stories you have. And, thank you so much, Paul, because grandparents have a lot of the qualities we're trying to support here, which is patience, wisdom, the desire to live on through others, to have their ideas being shared long after they're gone. The program we're doing right now, maybe watch for the next 30 years by who knows how many people, and maybe me or Kelle or one of you will get discovered. And because your association, this will get exposed. I mean, Agmandino died over 30 years ago, and we're talking about my experience with him, Paul's experience with him. Most people don't even know who Agmandino is, and now they do. And that's the beauty of longevity, is if you're working on your thoughts, your ideas, your vision, they're evergreen.
Yeah.
Right? And fads and trends come and go. But, you got the chance to get on the right bus instead of the wrong bus, and even drive the bus. And you know what I will tell people, and it is strange for some people, Poonam loves your earrings. Don, you're okay. Is what turns you on turns other people like you on. What you're hoping to do or get done for you is what people are waiting to get done for them. My advice, if do what you do best as well as you can for the best group you can. And if that means volunteering or making nothing, you're working. And not only that, you're going to be appreciated, because not that many people will do that, is be an apprentice or an intern or just volunteer for a while. You know, if someone said to somebody, and it's really cool because it's psychology, if you found a company you love to work for and a person you'd love to work with, do whatever you can to volunteer, because you're a low risk, you're a no cost, and you're a person who makes investments before someone has to invest in you. And here's why. You should know what you're getting into too before you sign up. Right?
Yes.
By being an intern or an apprentice, or say, hey, I see I can do something for you. I've got free time right now while I'm looking for my next opportunity. Can you find a spot for me? And you'll get a call back, right? Because now you're the one who's offering something of value in return for only an opportunity to work with someone, to show yourself. So it's like buying an audition, right? That you have no obligation to in the future. And you're going to be different than the 1,000 people who say, I'll work for less, I'll work anywhere you want, I'll do this, you know, and it puts that person in like, I got total control here. I can manipulate this any way I want. And that's not right. Dean says rising tides lift all boats, but in your case, ships, because ships can carry boats. So rising tides lift all ships, leadership. You're so right, Dean. You said so much in such a nice way to follow by bringing ships and rising. You know, if all your words lead in the same direction, you're consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Many people say, I had a terrible problem, but now things are better. It's like you could erase both of those sentences. They're better, you know. It's like I went down, but I got up, and nothing's wrong. It's like Poonam, Dean. Yes, this is reality. You know, and what reality is what you want to make it.
Yes.
I know with my kids, I know my daughter had a wonderful princess party when she was like 8, 9 years old, you know, and everybody dressed up as princess, and some lady came in as a princess, a real full-length princess. And for that hour, it was fantasy. It was magic. Everybody continued to believe in it.
So love it.
Why not create those parties as you get older? You know?
I was going to say, I would do that as an adult. Give me a tiara and I'm ready to go.
Well, you know, that's so cool. But you see, now I get to share it. Everybody gets to share it. And if you really come in, and it's almost recycling. Bring in your old stuff that doesn't work, toss it in the bin, make yourself open and available for stuff that does, and go shopping. You know, if someone says, here's 10 grand, throw out your whole closet and refill it with everything you like today. And there's probably stuff with an old closet you'd never get rid of anyways. But the point is any day you decide to start, you're winning. Anytime you start to go somewhere you're not used to, you're winning, you're stretching, you're exposing, you know, and that's all healthy. And when you're with people like Linda Coleman or Poonam or Paul, and these are daily people, daily names, right? They're here for themselves. But by being here for themselves, they're here in a way that they can help so many others.
Yeah.
Because I never felt threatened by Dean or Poonam or Paul or anybody here. I never felt intruded upon. And if anything, I'm more available because I'm grateful. With all people, we're nothing. And if tomorrow everybody found something better than this, we're nothing. So what I learned about every relationship, and I've had some pretty long-term ones, you got to earn it every day. You know, you gotta support it. It's like plants. You just can't not water them and expect them to grow. And there's people that at a certain point, the money, the business, all that stuff disappears. And you're just glad to be with really nice people for a change. And everybody's nice. So it's not like you walk in a room and 3 are awful and 17 are good. And they kind of blend. And tomorrow's your day. Today is the day to think about tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day to act on what you think about today. And, you know, training wheels never hurt anybody. That's how you learn to ride a bike, right? So get a hand, get two hands if you need, and eventually be self-sufficient. And I think to Paul's point, and we've got to finish this up because we're at the top of the hour, is Don, I think the importance of that book is it makes you realize how valuable you are. One of my favorite lines is, I am nature's greatest miracle and nature knows no defeat. Taking things for granted is the biggest mistake I've made. Well, you know, everything is reciprocal. You stop giving, that person's going to start giving to somebody else who gives back. If you give first, you're going to initiate either someone giving back or saying, I'm not a giver. Either way, you win. It's like, hey, I found a home, or this isn't the right place. I'm going to keep moving on. And you should never be embarrassed about reaching out, because a rejection is still better than I should have, but I don't have the courage. You know, and at a certain point, if you can't trust yourself, trust somebody who you can trust to get you over the hump. I mean, how many people have I said, everybody I'm saying, get on the show. You got a story. You need to tell it. And, you know, the thing is once you tell it, you like hearing what you just said, and you want to do it again. You know, so it's really trading one bad addiction or habit for a quality addiction or habit, one bad person for a better one. I mean, if you were the general manager of a baseball team, you'd be like, we're going to keep these 6 players, but these 12 are going. You know, we'll draft some new ones. We'll bring in some other ones. And now we got a better team. You got to keep juggling, you know, and it's fun because now you're changing things. Mm-hmm. You know, I found that even if you change one little thing in your room, it changes your perspective.
Yes.
You know, if you bring in just a lamp or something, that's cool. Okay, we got to wrap it up. Poonam says, your thoughts here are very nice and full of life. Well, you know, I am so more fortified after this. I mean, I am on fire with ideas and thoughts, and everything I used to think about before this fell into the background, and this stuff took purpose. And the other thing that's so cool I'm learning, and everything is such an education here, is when you see people's names, now you don't just see the people, you see the feelings from the people, which is so good. You know, when I see Christy, when I see Christine, and here's what we got in 3 months, and we weren't, believe me, as good a month ago, 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, which means we're going to be better in 4 or 5 months. When this thing spreads, and this is like just an early flame, Ambimbola. One thing I can say, Ambimbola, I'm really good at your name now. You both are just awesome, Donald Kelly. My mom just kept smiling, listening to you. Well, that's cool when you can involve your mother.
Love that.
You know, and me and my mother, we were so close. You know, towards the end of her life, she loved going to Las Vegas. That was her biggest thing. And we would go when Ann only would go when the pool was open. She wouldn't go in the winter. So my mother would go all the time. So we'd go about 3-4 times a year. And everything was for her. I mean, there was a limo at the airport. There was a casino host that would welcome her. There was the VIP room. Everything was comped. And I just loved watching her have fun. You know, that's all I did on those trips. Even at a distance, when she thought I was somewhere else, I'd be off in a corner watching her enjoy herself. And when you get the gift of that, you know, knowing, because at a certain point I knew I'm going to have a lot more trips ahead of me than she will. So every trip she has got to be valuable. So not with getting beyond it, but you know, that's so cool to bring your mom into it, to bring your family, because you know what's cool about it? They see what you're into. Yeah. And if they like what they're hearing, they're glad you're hearing it. And now all of a sudden, your mom is going to be one of your biggest supporters. And maybe we even have a show about family. And that's a whole area of relationships that people need help with. So Ambimbola, you're so special. Yeah. And what you bring, great talk today, Don and Kelle. Well, you know, me and Kelly talked yesterday, right? And it was so short, the hour. And today it's already beyond an hour. It's 4 minutes past. And it seemed like 10 minutes. It's like we just.
I mean, it is so crazy how fast it goes.
So with that, hopefully we're better for you being better and all of us being better. And, you know, we challenge ourselves to raise the bar and help each other get over it. It's one thing you did something, raised a bar, and you walk away, and next person has to do it. But if you're there when they're doing it and show them how to do it, Jason, talking about family would be an awesome show. Everything we're talking about is involved with everybody here. Everybody has family. Everybody has a profession, a career, a direction as far as employment. Everybody has mental health and attitude and mindset. And, why not make it, just like the Hallmark Network, right? You know exactly what's going to be on there every time. It's
not as sappy.
Yeah, but I'm saying it really addresses those people. And I still do once in a while. I love some Hallmark Christmas movies. That'll get you out of a rut, and everything is positive and respectful, and nothing is bad. And that's what I think me and Kelly and a few other people are going to be focused on, is how do we take everything we learned, take this opportunity and create something special, and do it over a point where, hey, the 9 o'clock hour is mindset, the 11 o'clock hour is employment, the 2 o'clock hour is relationships, and then keep filling this in. And then all of a sudden, events, groups, all this stuff come together. You don't know how huge this is going to be, because it's already taking on a life of its own. The message is spreading through all these wonderful people. I can't wait. It's so lovely when the future looks so bright. You kind of need sunglasses, and it's real. It's not one of those mirages that, hey, I think it's there. Oh, whoops, it's not. This is for real. And the belief will manifest. So anyways, Kelly, final words?
Well, what an awesome day. I'm so grateful to be back, and thank you everyone for your participation. And I know it's a Feel Good Friday, and I'm leaving feeling good. So wishing everyone a very happy weekend, and Dawn will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, I can't wait. We got some great guests next week. Kelly's just phenomenal. All of this comes together the right way because of all the right people who are involved in this. I bring a little, Kelly brings a little, and like I say, it's going to be a fabulous picnic that everybody wants a seat around the table to share whatever they have. And it's so unusual to have emotion that's genuine. Most of the emotion on shows is takeaways. What did I get? Count up the money. What'd you put in? And that is so what it is, but it shows we can do a lot better. And we're not even scratching the scratch yet. So with that said, have a wonderful day. Come back tomorrow. I'll miss you until then. And enjoy. Bye for now.